everybody, and welcome back to OMB Reviews. I am the critic who is the cynic. Hope you're doing well, and today I'll be doing a review of Avatar: The Way of Water. And yes, if you can't tell by my demeanor or by my face, this is how incredibly tired and exhausted I am from that 3-hour James Cameron ego fest of a movie. And I will give my honest assessment of the film, as you never have to be concerned about that here on the channel. I'll talk about the good, as I think there are a couple of good things to talk about in the film, and there's also a lot of bad and ugly things to talk about as well. But before going any further, please make sure you smash that like button, love that fire button if you're watching on Odyssey, smash the rumble button as well. Also, make sure that you're subscribed with the bell notification on that way you know every time a video or live stream goes live on the channel. So finally, the film is here. The film that is projected by some to make upwards of $500 million worldwide. Maybe that will be a little less, since China apparently is opening up in about half the theaters that it was projected to because of various COVID-related things. But let's talk about the movie itself. Well, okay, James Cameron has had about 13 years to actually write a story for this movie, and it sure as heck doesn't show on screen. Again, talking here about story. You know those things, that one thing specifically that's so incredibly important for any movie? You know that thing that every single movie, in order for it to be good, needs? In order, again, that desperately needs? Continues to be something that James Cameron, for some reason, just continues to lack. This is something that was the weakest point of the first film, and though I definitely think there are certain elements of the movie, story-wise, that are better than the first. For one, Jake Sully is portrayed as a good, strong father figure, and I know that's something that's been brought up a lot by a lot of other people, and yeah, that's a great thing to see. There's even lines in the film where he says, you know, what it means to be a dad is to protect, and so I think that element is nice. But then you contrast that with the words of what James Cameron himself has said about masculinity, and it just kind of goes against itself in a certain regard. That all being said, separating what his comments outside of the film are from what the film itself was, it is still there. And it does actually make sense, because the screenplay, though it says here that the screenplay was only written by 3 people, the story very much developed by a much larger group of people, and you can kind of tell throughout the movie that there are a lot of cooks in the kitchen when it comes to the writing of the story. And let's just start off with that runtime as well, because I think it ties very much into the story. This movie did not need to be 3 hours long. This movie was made 3 hours long because James Cameron wanted to make a James Cameron ego fest. He was like, I want to have every dollar given to me to be able to put these images on screen that serve no purpose other than showing people, look at all of the amazing things that we can do with technology now. That ultimately is what it comes down to. There are these long extended sequences where they could have easily cut it. You have these random transitions from one scene to the next, from one location to the next, that seem to come out of nowhere, that come almost jaunted, that come almost jolted in a certain respect. So you have these weird editing issues throughout the movie where you just feel like you're being pulled from location to location, and not just pulled, but you're being dragged and dragged and dragged. And it's like James Cameron's like, no, you just don't understand it. You don't understand it yet. It's almost as if he made this movie for me. And I'll be honest here, it's almost as if he made this movie for me, because it's almost as if he was like, I'm going to punch you in the face with my CGI fest, and then I'm going to drag you along, and if you thought that you've had enough, nope, I'm going to drag you along further. Oh, you think you've had enough? No, I'm going to drag you along further, and continues to do it over and over and over again. And now I'm going to throw water into the mix to put even more CGI stuff there. And don't be wrong, it is the technology of what he's advanced. By the way, he's worked with China. China helped develop much of the technology used in the showcasing of this film. Very important to talk about that, especially since China is now conveniently reopening things after it was closing things down because of COVID. Oh, now that this film is opening up and there's a chance for them to make a lot of money, especially off of the technology that they developed with James Cameron. Okay, yeah, now all of a sudden things are where they are. Regardless of that, what you have in The Way of Water is nothing more than James Cameron's ego. It reminded me a lot of that episode of South Park, where it's all about James Cameron diving into the ocean, trying to find the bar. If you remember the episode, right? He's trying to raise the bar. The bar's been lowered so much, it's up to James Cameron singing songs to himself about himself in order to raise the bar. And that's exactly what this film is. That's exactly what this film is. It's like, wait, do we have to do this? Is this something that serves any purpose? No, but we can, and it's going to cost us millions upon millions of dollars to do it. Let's go ahead and do it. Oh, wait, what about your story? Shouldn't you have a good original story? No. I'm just going to borrow, not just, again, we see a reiteration in many ways when it comes to the story to what we saw in the first film. There are restatements, reiterations of that Fern Gully environmentalist message. Of course, from almost the get-go. You then also have these elements of Dances with Wolves. Once again, it's like they're rehashing the same crap over and over again. There are these contrivances that happen. In the very beginning, there's this exposition where all of a sudden they're establishing new characters and then also bringing old characters back. I guess I'm going to try to avoid spoilers because that's the polite thing to do for anyone who actually wants to sit through this 3-hour snooze fest. But in the end, they just randomly decide, hey, yeah, we're just going to create this new character out of thin air, and we're going to make it almost like the best way I can describe it is almost like a Jesus conception type character. And then we're going to have this other character come back because, hey, we need a villain, so we might as well do this. We might as well play around with this and just say, hey, yeah, audience, you just have to accept it. Yes, it's convenient. Yes, we've had 13 years to develop a brand new story. We've had 13 years to, hey, maybe decide, hey, there's other things on Pandora that we could actually have some tensions with. But nope, it's still humans, mostly white men, by the way, versus natives. That is the crux of the story. And what are the natives? The natives are in one with the land. They're in one in peace with the land, right? They have their little ponytails that they use not only to make love with one another, but also they use to ride animals. I had an issue with it in the first film, still an issue with it in this film as well. So they're in one with nature, and now all of a sudden, now they're one with aquatic life and aquatic nature, with whales and fish and all kinds of things like it. Yes, that's what we have going on in this movie. So the environmental message is even more there, only now instead of it being unobtainium, now there's an anti-whaler message, because there's these whales, I guess spoiler warning here, there's whales in this universe, there's whales on Pandora, where if you happen to, and Lord knows how they figured this out, by the way, this is again how contrived and how stupid the story actually is, if you happen to drill in this whale because of how intelligent this whale is, how do we know that? Well, convenient story part. Oh, we drill right up into the inside of the whale. We need to get inside the whale. We need to kill the whale to get inside the whale, to then drill inside, and then we get close to the specific part of its brain, and then we get this yellow ooze, and what does that help us do? It actually helps us to de-age people. It helps de-age people. It helps in the aging process for humans, conveniently. So again, there's this anti-whaler message. At one point, one of the characters says, wait, so what are we going to do with the rest of the whale? Oh, we're just going to leave it. Oh, okay. Yeah, great. So the this environmentalist nonsense being pushed continuously in film. And it'd be one thing, too, if it was like Fern Gully, where it was actually an entertaining movie. In this film, it's just like, oh, no, this is just there because James Cameron has no idea what to write his story about. And so he's like, oh, let me just borrow from this. There's also a lot of things borrowed, I would argue, from Hook. There's actually a part of this movie where the guy, one of the main villains in the film, says, basically what Hook says at the end of Hook, right? If you've seen that movie, he says, like, I will come for your children and your children's children's children, and you will never see the end of me. Do you hear me? And now I'm going to come back and fight. There are so many elements. So once again, James Cameron has decided to borrow from superior movies, better films, because he can't actually sit down to write his own compelling original story because his mind and heart and money and other people's money is so caught up into Pandora. into Pandora Land. So are there people that are going to enjoy this movie? Yeah, because there are going to people that are going to say, ooh, pretty lights. Oh, but it's so pretty. Oh, you're being really mean about that story. Oh, you're being so mean about the story. The story is so beautiful and compelling. Yes, and we've seen it in so many other films. There was nothing about this movie that was revolutionary in any way other than the effects, which, again, you still have giant blue Smurf people. Good job. You still have the giant blue Smurf people that look just as giant, just as blue, and just as Smurf-like. And you have the incredible looking world with the incredible looking creatures. So yeah, great job. You've been able to continue to create beautiful CGI worlds with beautiful CGI imagery when it comes to your animals. But you still have these weird looking creatures that don't look very, again, there's always going to be, for years to come, there's always going to be that inability for the human eye to accept that image that's clearly computer generated. And I'm not going to try and take away from any of the performances of the motion capture that was done in this process. And I'm sure there were some revolutionary things. I'm sure that there's going to be some behind the scenes footage that are going to make some people go, that's amazing. The problem that I have is, okay, but what purpose did it serve other than to feed the ego of James Cameron and for him just to try to show off that, oh, we can do this with this technology, instead of doing other things, or at the very least creating a compelling story. And now all of a sudden we have it to set up at the end of this movie, the third, fourth, fifth movie. It's like, okay, so from what I'm gathering at the end of this movie, we're just going to continue to get the same story because they set up for the same exact thing to happen again in the next movie. So it's like, are we just going to get humans versus natives again and again and again, with the natives constantly reminding us to be one with nature, and that the humans are all evil, and that, oh, we're trying to take all the resources. If you couldn't tell, there are a lot of things that this film just doesn't do well. Because it'd be one thing if all of this happened in a 90-minute movie or in an hour and 45-minute movie. You know, at that point, there might actually be a little bit more positive things to say. But the fact that James Cameron, decided to stretch this out, and really stretch this out into over 3 hours of nonsense, of borrowed storylines, of borrowed story arcs that were done so much better in other films, all the while pushing the same type of environmental messaging, all the while pushing the same exact storylines, almost beat for beat in so many other ways, but maybe just a little bit longer, and maybe some, oh, look, we've got even cooler imagery here, we've got new creatures that we can show you. It's an incredibly forgettable movie. Just like the first movie, it's an incredibly forgettable movie. It's a film that you're going to have people that are going to love, and they're going to say, but I can't wait to buy this on 4K and just go back to Pandora because I wish it was a real place. And then hopefully you have more people like me who are going to say, oh yeah, this movie, oh yeah, it was 3 hours waste of my life, waste of my time that I'm not getting back. And he's going to continue to make more because the movie is guaranteed to make 1.5 to 2 billion is what I'm projecting it's going to make. But it honestly shouldn't, because the story itself sucks. Because there is no real story other than what has been borrowed from so many other films that have done it so much better. So anyway, what's the good? Okay, there's some elements in here. Again, the strong father figure, I think that's a good dynamic. I think that's a good story. Some of the CG effects, some of the effects absolutely look beautiful, absolutely look great. There's definitely emotion that is being conveyed amongst these characters, amongst these actors. I think that the acting that happens within the film is pretty great too. Oh yeah, there's also totally a Tarzan story arc thrown into the mix here as well, amongst so many others. But you take all of these things and then you put it into this 3-hour snooze fest. I fell asleep within the first 30 minutes. And then as I continued to watch after the fact, I just continued to look at my watch and say, okay, when's this going to be over? And for anyone's like, oh, well, you were going to hate this film anyway going in. No, trust me, I always go in with an open mind with movies. And I have totally had an open mind saying, hey, maybe he'll actually give us a good story. But instead, no, he continues to rehash the same crap over and over again, just like in the first film. And then also continues to borrow from other films that do it so much better, because he, in 13 years, doesn't have time to actually write a story. Doesn't have time to actually write compelling narratives. He instead wants to borrow compelling narratives that have been done by others, and then people are going to say, but what about this part? What about this part? This was amazing. It's like, yeah, and you can take that exactly from take your pick of a movie. You know, I threw out just a few examples of ones that I saw for the first time in this one that I had not seen before, right? You still have the Fern Gully Pocahontas mindset. You still have, again, now you have the instances of even Hook being a part of the story as well. You have Free Willy in the movie. That's right, Free Willy. Free Willy! John Panette fans out there might know what that is. But what a mess. Again, if you like CGI, if you like CGI Fest, if that person says, well, I just want to escape into 3 hours. Stop complaining. Stop trying to take away my joy. I'm not trying to take away anything. You do whatever you want to do with your time. All I'm going to say is that for those that have actually been wanting to have an honest opinion about the movie, I'm going to tell you the movie is a 3 hours waste of time that you don't need to waste your time on, because it's not going to tell you a story. It's not going to tell you a story that's any different than anything else you've ever seen before. It's going to show you technology that, oh, yeah, okay, I guess some of it's impressive, but for the most part, it's like, okay, yeah, so just like the first Avatar film, it's not going to take very long for this CGI, for this for these effects to slowly age themselves into oblivion. So if I had to give this film a grade, I'm going to give it a D. And I give that solely because I think that I honestly think that the people doing the motion capture work did a great job. I think the people rendering the effects did a great job too. But ultimately it comes down to, this is the second film. This was a time for James Cameron to show that he can actually write a story. And he continues to show that he can't. He cannot write a story. He can only borrow from much better stories than his. And all that it is about his freaking ego on screen for 3+ hours. So anyway, those are my thoughts about the movie. Have you seen Avatar: The Way of Water? God help you if you have. And I'm sure I'll get some haters in the chat. I'm sure I'll have some James Cameron stands in the chat saying, you just don't appreciate. No, you're right. I don't appreciate, because I actually want a good story, and I want compelling characters. I don't want shells of characters that are clearly inspired by and based upon other characters and other films that have been done so much better. With all that being said, though, let me know your thoughts in the comment section down below. If you like this video, smash that like button, like that fire button. Honestly, you're all amazing and beautiful people. Hope you all have a wonderful rest of your day. Free Willy, everybody. Hook. Dances with Wolves, Pocahontas. They're all back. Some new. Some old friends, some new friends. And a shout out, of course, to the one changed from my November shoutouts video. Chris from the 80s. Check him out on YouTube. Anyway, you're amazing. Have a wonderful day, everybody. And as always, God bless, and it's time for me to sleep. And now for a huge special shout out to all of my November Patreon Subscribe Star and Locals members at the Keeper of the Bifrost level and above. Starting off with Patreon with Father Luca Illich. Thank you very much, Father. Garrett Searles, Jaimir Irie Hymason, Joe Horn, Jonathan Carney, Laura, The Modern Major General Story, Orange Hat Reviews, who you can check out on YouTube at his channel, Orange Hat Reviews, Rosetta Allen, who also has a YouTube channel that you can check out at Eagle Writer, and Miss Martin Muses, who also has a YouTube channel, Miss Martin Muses, and of course the amazing Empress of the Universe, Tina B, who you can check out at her YouTube channel, Tina B, where she hosts the show with Stephanie B, one of my mods, and one of my Valkyrie, called Soup to Nuts. Check out Soup to Nuts, and it premieres pretty much every Friday. So again, shout out to all of my Patreon people, also to all my Subscribe Star people, starting off with Matt317. Check him out on Twitch at Matt317. The R, Fast Reaction, Mr. Roy, J-Rod, the Beer Guru, and ZK-Man. And ZK-Man you could check out over at xtheboundaries.co to follow him as he starts his podcast, and also for many of his musical musings as well. Check him out. Very, very talented guy. And then lastly, my locals peeps. We got Miss Minnesota Hockey Fan. How about a hockey player? UAB Mad Dog, Mike Jackson for the win. J.H. Schwalbach, Brett D90, and the amazing lawyer, Robert Barnes. Thank you all so very much for supporting me. And if you want your name shouted out at the end of every live stream and video, go ahead and check out the top link in the video description below, where you get access to that. Also, you get access to special things like giveaways, and also exclusive podcasts that I do with John the Flickinger and other guests throughout the month of November and in the previous and the months to follow as well. And again, if any of that sounds interesting to you, especially the 4K giveaways, Steelbook giveaways, some of them that I have to give away this month are films like Starship Troopers on 4K Steelbook, Top Gun Maverick on 4K Steelbook, amongst many others. If that sounds interesting to you, check out the link and follow the instructions down below. Anyway, you guys are all amazing and beautiful people. Hope you all have a wonderful rest of your day. And as always, God bless.